Yeah.
at class.
Okay. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Next section, precaution. Think of a Catholic athlete making the sign of a cross, or LeBron James putting talcum powder on his hands, clapping them, and throwing the remainder to his audience. Both rituals are ways of boosting reassurance and allaying fear. Freud thought that religion was society's obsessive compulsive disorder, and that obsessive compulsive disorder was an individual's private religion. That's an interesting way to look at it. He saw the link but didn't fully understand it. We know now that the brain has precautionary vigilance systems that can be triggered to take repetitive or stereotyped action to allay anxiety. These same mechanisms are used in religious rituals to deal with anxiety generated by uncertainty or risk, both inherent in life, but especially common in the harsh, dangerous world of our ancestors. Thoughts and comments?
Yeah, here again, it's going with part of why you might have certain tensions is you see certain high achieving people, high resource provision people, or high status people have specific rituals, especially when it comes to athletes. That's one of the fields where they really have certain things. They have to have certain things in certain ways. Not even just athletes, performers, musicians. I think people of high status seem to have certain rituals that they go into, especially public figures. A musician will have to make sure there's certain things on their rider. I think it's the rider when they're touring at every green room, there has to be, oh, I want M&Ms, where you got to pick out all the green ones. For all these things that in their mind is part of the process they need to go through to achieve that. And for them, they can do all these quirky type of odd things because they have the resource provision and status to back up that somehow these are the things that have happened when I did these things. But your average person, I think part of the reason we have this loss in rituals and confusion and tension is that there's all these different rituals being taught, and there's very little reinforcement that the rituals you actually engage in have actually given you certain achievements. People don't have a lot of self-confidence and self-knowledge, and on top of that, we are aware of the millions of people. Whereas in the past, of those 100 people that you're around, 100, 150 people, let's say it's 100 people, 80 of the people would be kind of just average people. 10 of the people will be a lot worse than you are. Then 10 of the people would be like those people in those higher class, and you were also very aware of why they had those parts. But now you're in a situation where you have your rituals, you have your things, and then there's somebody, some new little kid somewhere who seems to be making millions and have all these fans, and you go and you look at them on their Twitter or their Facebook or their social media, and you're like, this person's an idiot. Why do they have these things? Like, I have my rituals, I have my effort, so you kind of get that loss where you don't really have that much, reinforcement from having your rituals, and you don't get that pleasure and things. So I think that anxiety could be there. Whereas in the past, you all had the same rituals. So all the people in your group, all the people above, all the people below you were still engaging in the same rituals. So you had some kind of background feeling that as long as I did these things, I could maintain this middle and I could get to that top. Or if I don't do them, I will be at this bottom. So I think that kind of reinforced that structure more. And again, with the people who are of faith, I definitely do accept that religion, theology, belief in God has been a core part of people's belief systems for, I don't want to say millennia actually, for societies, but doesn't necessarily, millennia is centuries, right?
No, millennium, that's 1,000 years. So you figure.
Yeah. So, oh, yeah, so even millennium.
Yeah.
Yeah, so millennia, for millennia, it's been part of it. But I do think we can get to a point where it's reducing. We don't have to bring that back necessarily in order to still maintain and achieve and supersede the positive things that belief in God was giving to the people at that level in humanity's evolution as a entity. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And yeah, it was interesting what you just said about the whole, sort of the bell curve thing about people at the top, people at the bottom, in the middle. And that's sort of the challenge about people breaking off and going in their own directions, because historically, if you did that, you either got killed, exiled, or jailed. And of course, that meant your genes died off. That's why so many people go with the flow and still do. But at the same time, the people who were able to do it successfully, they end up in charge of the new group. And then it's like, then they become a higher status than something else. It's a question of how many people succeeded at doing that and what are the risks people are willing to take to try and get to that level. And a lot of people are not willing to take that risks of what they're up against.
Yeah, and actually, as you mentioned that with the bell curve, I think I might be focusing too much, as humans normally do, on the people who are better off.
Yeah.
But what might be actually even more disturbing is instead of being able to see, like in the past, you were only able to see like 80 people who are like you, and now with the more people, now we see 1,000 people who are much better off than us, and we can hope to be like them. But what's even more troubling is in the past you could only see 10 people who were like you, and majority of the people who are like you were generally okay and or better. But now there's also 1,000 people who seem to be doing the same things that you're doing and are in a horrible place. So your mind is also able to be like, holy shit, I could just be there. So I think that could be something.
But that's also why social media has contributed to depression and things, because there's people who go on and they see people on vacations, traveling, happy, all that, and they just look at that and they think, wow, my life sucks by comparison. But then it's like you have to remember that that's a person's highlight reel. Like, you're not experiencing when they lose somebody or what they're going through and all that. And like, I have a friend who recently she lost a cousin, and I guess her father's health isn't good, and she's posting pictures of herself partying and everything, and she's kind of like, look, I'm not in a good place right now. I know I posted stuff on social media, but I'm dealing with a lot of pain. And it's like, you have to bear that stuff in mind, because it's easy to look at the person's highlight reel and be like, wow, this person has such a great life, why isn't mine like that? But you're not seeing the whole picture. You're just focused on highlights. Like conceivably you could post like pictures of yourself at weddings, yourself at parties, yourself at all this, and people could look at your life and think, wow, this person's so lucky, I wish I was like that. But they don't know the problems that you go through too. So
that's a key thing. Just also project your life or your own life on people. Just if you're in a situation where you're struggling with something, and then you look on social media or other people and you say, or you just meet people in your day-to-day life and you think, oh, everybody has, or most people have such a better life than I do. Ask yourself, how much of your actual issues do you project, do you publish on social media? If you just meet somebody in a grocery store and you're really going through some tough things, and they say hi or they wave or they walk by you, do you break down and cry, or do you just wave and smile and like engage in small talk? Chances are you are someone who's just more sociable, and you just put on the social aspect. It's about being social. Like, social media is intend to be social, but some people take it too personal. And that aspect, if you're somebody that doesn't project your personal actual issue in public in that sense, don't assume that because everybody else is projecting a sort of comfortable and happy and level-minded situation, they're not also going through some really tough things in their mind. They might just be like you, putting on a brave face. So don't just assume that. And especially, again, I just want to ask, like, your friends, if you know these people, try to find people around you, have at least one or two people, 2 to 3, the more the better around you that you can actually open up with and ask questions about. And if there's people in your life that you care about, that you are not sure about certain things, even if you're sure, just ask, how are you doing? Like, how are you really, really doing? Like, is there something else that's in there? That really means a lot to it can mean the world. It can save lives to be somebody who just asks that question to somebody when they're in a tough time. So
definitely.
Thank you for listening. This has been a clip from an actual longer recording that I'll try to leave a link to on the screen or somewhere around here where you're listening to this.
Presents. 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 Presents.
Peasants.
Okay. Okay.